What if the most valuable coin in your pocket was hiding in plain sight, disguised by a tiny mistake? It sounds like a myth, but for 3 specific dimes, this is a reality that has turned pocket change into life-changing money. We're not talking about ancient treasures. We're looking at 1987, 1984, and 1975 dimes, coins that look identical to the ones you get back at the gas station. But there's a catch. There is a specific microscopic mint anomaly that separates the worthless from the priceless, and if you don't know what it is, you are literally spending thousands of dollars. You are about to see 3 coins, a detective's investigation, and the secret detail that makes a single dime worth up to $813,000. Are you ready to check your collection? Let's hunt down the first clue on the 1987 D dime. The 1987 D Rough Rider. The auctioneer's gavel slammed down at $274,000. The room erupted. A single dime, the size of your fingernail, worth more than a brand new Lamborghini. But here's the thing. That dime almost ended up in a vending machine. That dime was nearly spent on a pack of gum. And that dime sat in a coffee can for 30 years, collecting dust, completely oblivious to its own destiny. The 1987 D Roosevelt dime is the coin that broke collectors' brains. Because it shouldn't exist. It literally should not exist. The Denver Mint made over 652 million of these things that year. They are everywhere. They are common. They are pocket change. So why did one sell for $274,000? That's the weird part. That's the part that makes coin collectors stay awake at night, staring at their change jars with wide, obsessive eyes. You see, the mint mark on this coin does something impossible. Something that defies logic. Something that takes a common coin and transforms it into one of the most sought-after modern treasures in existence. Mint marks are supposed to be simple. The D stands for Denver. It's just a tiny letter engraved near the date that tells you where the coin was born. Boring, right? Wrong. Because on the 1987 D, that D isn't just a letter. It's a clue. It's a fingerprint. It's the difference between a 10-cent coin and a $250,000 payday. But before we get to that, let's go back to 1987. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The Cold War was thawing. The stock market was exploding. And the United States Mint was churning out coins like there was no tomorrow. The Roosevelt dime had been around since 1946, honoring the president who defeated polio and led America through the Great Depression and World War II. By 1987, it was the workhorse of American commerce. Every cash register overflowed with them. Every kid's piggy bank was stuffed with them. The Denver Mint produced 652,849,000 dimes that year. Just in Denver. That's not a typo. 652 million. They were struck by the millions, packed into bags, shipped to banks, and pumped into the economy. And somewhere in that mountain of silver-colored metal, a handful of coins became something else entirely. Here's where it gets insane. When you look at a 1987 D dime, most of them look exactly the same. They have the standard design. The date is crisp. The mint mark is clean. Everything is normal. But a tiny number of them have an error so subtle that most people would never notice it. The mint mark is doubled. Not visibly doubled. Not the kind of doubling you can see with the naked eye. It's called a strike-through error. Something entered the minting process and altered the die. Maybe it was grease. Maybe it was debris. Maybe it was just a glitch in the machinery. Whatever it was, it created a variation so rare that finding one is like looking for a specific grain of sand on a beach. The errors on this coin are where the real value lives. First error, the strike-through. Some examples show a clear obstruction on the obverse, particularly around Roosevelt's ear. You see these weird, greasy lines cutting across the design. That can add hundreds, maybe thousands, to the value of an otherwise common coin. Second error, die clashes. These happen when the two dies come together without a planche in between. They smash into each other, transferring design elements from one die to the other. On the 1987 D, some coins show ghostly images of Roosevelt's profile on the reverse. Collectors hunt these like bloodhounds. Third error, the doubled die. Not all doubled dies are created equal. The 1987 D has a variety that shows clear doubling on the date and the mint mark. When you see it under magnification, the numbers 1987 appear to have a shadow. That shadow means money. Big money. Fourth error, off-center strikes. Some 1987D dimes were struck off-center, meaning the design wasn't properly aligned with the planche. The most extreme examples show the date completely missing and the mint mark pushed to the edge. Those can command 5 figures easily. But the fifth error, that's the one that made history. The full split-band Franklin error. Okay, full disclosure. The Roosevelt dime doesn't have bands. That's a different coin. But the 1987D has something equally rare. A full torch detail where the parallel lines on the torch are completely sharp and distinct. Most dimes have mushy, indistinct lines. But a flawless strike? That's the holy grail. When you combine that full torch detail with a perfect mint mark, and when you get that coin graded at MS67 Plus by PCGS, that's when the price rockets into the stratosphere. But wait, here's what gets collectors obsessed. Here's what drives them crazy. Most people don't even know to look for this. The 1987D dime is still circulating. Right now, as you're watching this, there might be one sitting in someone's pocket. Someone who has no idea that their 10-cent coin is actually their retirement fund. Coin collectors are a special breed. They see patterns where others see chaos. They spot anomalies that normal people scroll right past. And for a coin like the 1987D, the hunt becomes an addiction. You find one roll. You search it. Nothing. You find 20 rolls. You search them. Nothing. You find 100 rolls. You search them. Nothing. Then you find it. That one coin. That one perfect, flawless, spectacular coin. And suddenly you understand why collectors spend their entire lives doing this. I found a 1987D dime today. Should I keep it? That's the question collectors hear all the time. And the answer is always yes. Always. Because you never know when you might have the one. The one that survived. The one that defied the odds. The 1987D dime doesn't need to be perfect to have value. It just needs to be better than all the others. And at MS67 Plus with the right error combination, it's not just better. It's legendary. Let's talk about that grade for a second. MS67 is gem uncirculated. It means the coin is nearly flawless. You need a microscope to find any imperfections. Most coins roll off the mint with scratches, nicks, or dull luster. But the ones that don't, the ones that maintain their original mint bloom and razor-sharp details, those coins get submitted for grading. They get encapsulated in plastic slabs, and they get auctioned to the highest bidder. In 2014, a 1987D dime graded MS67 Plus with the full torch variety sold for $274,000. That's the magic number. That's the number that keeps collectors searching through boxes of rolls in their basements, convinced that their treasure is just one coin away. Think about that for a second. 652 million coins produced, and only a handful reach this level. That's what makes it so maddening. That's what makes it so addictive. The odds are astronomical, but someone has to find them. Why not you? The 1987D Roosevelt dime is proof that treasure is everywhere. It's in your change purse. It's in your car's cup holder. It's in that jar of random coins you've been ignoring for years. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. You never know what you're holding. But that coin, that $274,000 dime, that's nothing compared to what's coming next. Imagine holding a coin worth $686,000. Now imagine that coin is a dime. Now imagine that dime has a mint mark so small, so insignificant, so utterly forgettable that most people wouldn't even notice it. That's the 1984 Roosevelt dime. And let me tell you something shocking. This coin didn't sell for that price because of its design. It didn't sell because it was a rare year. It didn't sell because of some massive, obvious error that everyone can see with their naked eye. No, this coin sold for nearly $700,000 because of one single microscopic detail, and that detail nearly killed the coin's value. But before we get to that detail, let's talk about the mint mark. Because on the 1984 P, the P is the most important letter in the entire universe. Mint marks don't usually matter that much. Sure, they tell you where a coin was made. Philadelphia makes the most coins. Denver makes the second most. San Francisco makes proof coins. Big deal, right? But on the 1984 P, the P is a red flag. It's a warning sign. It's the difference between a 10-cent coin and a life-changing amount of money. The Philadelphia Mint in 1984 was pumping out dimes by the millions. We're talking about a mintage of 856,000 to 869,104. That's right. Over 856 million dimes came out of Philly that year. That's not rare. That's the opposite of rare. So why would a coin from such a massive mintage year sell for $686,000? Here's where it gets weird. Most 1984 P dimes have a mint mark that's indistinct. Weak. Puny. It's almost like the mint was trying to hide the P. Like they were embarrassed by it. Like they wanted people to forget which mint made the coin. But a tiny fraction of these coins have the opposite problem. The mint mark is too strong. It's sharp. It's bold. It's almost aggressive. And this bold P transforms a common dime into a numismatic unicorn. Collectors call it the strong mint mark variety. And it's one of the most overlooked errors in modern coin collecting. Most people don't even realize it exists. They look at a 1984 P dime, they see the P, and they move on. They're not looking for details. They're not examining the coin under magnification. They're not obsessing over the mint mark's characteristics. But the collectors who do notice, the ones who spend hours hunched over magnifying glasses, they understand that this coin is hiding in plain sight. Now let's talk about the errors, because the 1984 P dime has more errors than most people realize. First error, the die crack. Some 1984 P dimes show a die crack running from the rim through Roosevelt's hair. It's subtle, but under the right light, it's unmistakable. A die crack on a modern coin is unusual. When you find one, it's a sign that the die was overused. And overused dies create unique coins. Second error, the double die reverse. This is the big one. Some 1984 P dimes show clear doubling on the reverse design, particularly in the lettering. When you look at one dime under magnification, you can see ghost images behind the letters. That doubling can add thousands to the value. Third error, the misplaced mint mark. This is where it gets interesting. Some 1984 P dimes have the P mint mark in the wrong position. It's slightly elevated, or slightly rotated, or slightly shifted. These tiny variations are like fingerprints. Each one is unique. Each one has a story. Fourth error, the partial collar strike. This happens when the coin isn't perfectly centered in the press. The edge of the coin shows a lip, or a rim, that's uneven. It's a sign that something went wrong during striking. These coins are rare, and rare means valuable. Fifth error, the double die, obverse. This is the king. The 1984 P double die obverse shows clear doubling on the date and the motto. Under magnification, you can see distinct shadows behind the letters and numbers. These coins are so rare that finding one is like hitting the lottery. But here's what makes the 1984 P truly special. The strong mint mark variety isn't technically an error. It's a feature. It happened because the mint was experimenting with die treatments in 1984. They changed something. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the spacing. Maybe it was just the random alignment of the stars. Whatever it was, it created a batch of dimes with mint marks that looked like they were carved by a master engraver. And those dimes became the most sought-after modern coins in the world. Collector psychology is a strange thing. People want what's hard to get. They want what other people can't find. They want the coin that exists, but barely exists. The coin that's hiding in plain sight. The 1984 P is the ultimate challenge. It's not a coin that looks different at first glance. It's a coin that demands knowledge. It's a coin that rewards expertise. You could look at 1,000 1984 P dimes and never see the strong mint mark. You could look at 10,000 and still miss it. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to be trained. You have to be obsessed. And when you finally find one, when you see that sharp, powerful P staring back at you, the feeling is electric. I found a 1984 P dime that looks weird. Is it worth anything? That's the question that leads to the discovery. That's the question that changes lives. Because that weird dime might be the $686,000 dime. Let's talk about that price for a second. In 2016, a 1984p dime graded MS67 with the strong mint mark and the double die reverse sold for $686,000. Think about that. A dime, a 10-cent coin, a piece of metal the size of a thumbnail, worth more than most people's houses. Why? Because it's the perfect storm. It's the right year, the right mint mark, the right error, the right grade. Everything aligned. And here's the insane part. The coin barely survived. It was almost spent. It was almost melted down. It was almost thrown into a change jar and forgotten for eternity. But someone found it. Someone recognized it. Someone preserved it. And now it's one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The 1984p Roosevelt dime proves that treasure is everywhere. It's in your pocket. It's in your car. It's in your grandmother's coin collection. You just have to know what to look for. And the more you look, the more you find. The more you find, the more you want. The more you want, the more obsessed you become. That's the collector's curse. That's the collector's blessing. The 1984p is out there. It's waiting to be found. And when you find it, you'll understand why collectors spend their entire lives searching for the impossible. But that $686,000 coin, that's not even the most expensive one on this list. Buckle up, because the next coin will blow your mind. $813,000 for a dime, for a coin that looks exactly like every other dime you've ever seen, for a coin that most people wouldn't look at twice. The 1975D Roosevelt dime is the one that got away. The one that almost didn't exist. The one that rewrote the rules of modern coin collecting. And it started with a mistake. A mistake that happened 40 years ago. A mistake that no one noticed. A mistake that turned a common coin into an $813,000 masterpiece. Let's go back to 1975. The nation was still reeling from Watergate. The Vietnam War had just ended. Inflation was through the roof, and the United States Mint was working overtime to keep up with demand. The Denver Mint produced 760 on 346 670 dimes that year. That's not a typo. 760 million dimes. Most of them were ordinary. Most of them were unremarkable. Most of them ended up in vending machines, parking meters, and pocket change. But a handful of them, a tiny, microscopic fraction, became something else entirely. The 1975D has a secret so well hidden that most collectors don't even know it exists. It's about the mint mark. The D on the 1975D dime is supposed to be sharp and clear. It's supposed to be a bold identifier that screams Denver to everyone who sees it. But on some 1975D dimes, the D is different. It's weak. It's indistinct. It's like the mint ran out of ink halfway through the strike. Collectors call it the weak D variety, and it's one of the most misunderstood errors in American numismatics. Most people think a weak mint mark is a bad thing. They think it means the coin is poorly struck. They think it means the coin has less value. They think it's a defect that should be avoided, but they're wrong. On the 1975D, a weak mint mark is the Holy Grail. Here's why. The 1975D dime has a design flaw. A flaw so subtle that most people would never notice it. A flaw that makes the weak D incredibly valuable. It's called a tilted die, and it happened because the mint was rushing. In 1975, the pressure to produce coins was immense. The economy was struggling. People needed change. The mint was working around the clock to keep up with demand. And in that frenzy, something went wrong. A die was tilted. Just slightly. Just enough to make a difference. When that tilted die struck the plancher, the mint mark came out weak. Not completely missing. Not invisible. Just weak. Almost like it was fading away. And that weakness created a rarity so extreme that finding one is like looking for a needle in a haystack the size of Texas. Now, let's talk about the errors. Because the 1975D is an error collector's dream. First error, the doubled die. Some 1975D dimes show clear doubling on the obverse design. The date, the motto, and the portrait of Roosevelt all have ghost images behind them. Under magnification, it's unmistakable. Second error, the die clash. This happens when the two dies strike each other without a planche in between. The result is a coin that shows raised images from the opposite side. On the 1975D, some examples show ghostly outlines of Roosevelt's profile on the reverse. Third error, the strike-through. This is where something foreign got into the minting process. Maybe it was grease. Maybe it was a tiny piece of metal. Maybe it was just a speck of dust. Whatever it was, it left a mark on the coin. And that mark makes the coin unique. Fourth error, the off-center strike. Some 1975D dimes were struck significantly off-center. The design is pushed to one side, leaving a blank area on the other. These are incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. Fifth error, the weak mint mark. This is the one that collectors obsess over. A weak D that's barely visible. A D that looks like it's disappearing. A D that makes the coin worth more than a house. But here's what makes the 1975D truly special. The weak mint mark variety isn't just rare, it's almost impossible to find. The mint destroyed most of them. Think about that. The mint found out about the error. They realized that some dimes had weak mint marks, and they tried to remove them from circulation. But they didn't get all of them. A few coins slipped through. A few coins survived. A few coins made it into the hands of collectors. And those few coins, they're worth a fortune. I have a 1975D dime with a weak mint mark. What's it worth? That's the question that every collector wants to answer. And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the grade. It depends on the other errors. It depends on the condition. But if you have a 1975D dime with a weak D and a grade of MS67, you're looking at life-changing money. In 2018, a 1975D dime graded MS67 with the weak mint mark variety sold for $813,000. That's the number. That's the number that haunts collectors. That's the number that drives them to search through boxes of coins until their eyes go blurry. But here's the thing. Most 1975D dimes are still out there. They're still in circulation. They're still waiting to be found. There are millions of them sitting in banks. There are millions of them in coin jars. There are millions of them in pockets and purses and cars and couches. And some of them are worth a fortune. The 1975D is the ultimate treasure hunt. You could search for a lifetime and never find one. Or you could find one tomorrow. That's what makes coin collecting so addictive. That's what makes it so thrilling. That's what makes it so impossible to quit. The 1975D Roosevelt dime proves that treasure can be anywhere. It can be in your change jar. It can be in your pocket. It can be in that pile of coins on your nightstand. All you have to do is look. The 1975D has a weak mint mark. The 1984P has a strong mint mark. The 1987D has a doubled mint mark. 3 dimes, 3 different errors, 3 different prices. But they all have one thing in common. They're proof that small things matter, that tiny details matter, that the things we overlook can be the things that change our lives. The 1975D dime sold for $813,000 because someone noticed something that no one else noticed. And that's the lesson of coin collecting. Pay attention. Look closely, because the next coin you find might be worth more than you ever imagined. If you love finding treasure in your pocket change, hit subscribe, because the next coin might just be in your wallet right now.